Most people think of September as the end of the gardening year. The flowers are fading, the season is winding down, and the instinct is to tidy up, put the tools away, and wait for spring. That instinct costs you the best spring garden you could have had, because September is not the end of anything. It is the single most important month for what your garden does next year. Here is the part almost nobody acts on. Nearly everything you do in the garden this month pays off 8 months from now, not now. You do the work in the cool of September, you see very little happen, and then next April and May, while everyone else is only just starting, your garden comes up thicker, earlier, and stronger from work you did while the season looked over. The reward is invisible for months, which is exactly why most gardeners skip it. And that delay is the trap, because the jobs do not announce themselves. There is no wilting plant demanding attention, no obvious problem to fix. There is just a quiet window, open for a few weeks. And if you let it pass, you do not find out what it cost you until next spring, when the bulbs you never planted are not there. The perennials you never divided come up sparse, and the lawn you never fed is thin and patchy. By then, it is too late to do anything but wait another full year. So this video is the handful of jobs to do in September that decide next spring, and why each one only works if you do it now. Some of them are planting jobs, some are dividing and feeding, and a couple are things you must not do this month, because doing them now causes the exact damage you are trying to avoid. There is one theme running through all of it, and it is the reason September works at all. The soil is still warm from summer while the air is turning cool, and that specific combination does something to plants that no other month offers. I will explain it in a moment, because once you understand it, every job on this list makes sense. This is not about keeping the garden tidy for winter. It is about setting up the whole next year while you have a window that closes in a few weeks and does not reopen until it is too late to matter. But first, why does September do this? Why is a job done now worth so much more than the same job done in spring? The answer is in the ground. The reason September works is a gap between two temperatures, the air and the soil. All summer, the ground has been soaking up heat, and soil holds that heat far longer than air does. So when autumn arrives and the air starts to cool, especially at night, the soil stays warm well after the air has turned. For a few weeks, you have cool air sitting on top of warm ground, and that specific combination is the whole engine of everything in this video. Think about what a plant does in that situation. The cool air above signals to the plant that the season for making leaves and flowers is over, so it stops pushing top growth. But the warm soil below is still perfectly comfortable for roots, so the plant keeps growing roots, hard, right up until the ground finally freezes. All the energy that would have gone into leaves in spring goes into roots instead. You get root growth without top growth, which is exactly what a plant needs to establish. That is why a perennial, shrub, or tree planted now, or a bulb, or a clump of grass seed, spends the whole autumn building a root system underground, while nothing much shows above the soil. And then next spring, when the air warms and the plant is ready to grow, it already has a large, established root system to grow from. It surges, weeks ahead of anything planted in spring, because spring plantings spend their first months building the roots your September plantings already have. So the work you do in September is invisible on purpose. It is all happening underground, in warm soil, out of sight, and it is the single biggest head start you can give next year's garden. That window stays open only while the soil holds its summer warmth. Once the ground goes cold, it closes, and everything on this list stops working. Which is why these are September jobs specifically. Now, job 1, and it is the one with the hardest deadline of all. Job 1. Get your spring bulbs in the ground this autumn, because this is the most literal do it now or wait a year job in all of gardening. Spring bulbs are the daffodils, tulips, crocuses, hyacinths, and alliums that give you the very first color of next year, often while there is still frost on the ground and nothing else is awake. And there is no shortcut on them, no way to make up for a missed window. A spring bulb has to be planted in autumn, spend the winter in cold ground, and only then will it flower in spring. Miss the autumn planting, and you simply do not get those flowers next year. There is no spring fix. You wait a full 12 months. The reason they need autumn is the cold itself. These bulbs require a long period of winter chill in the ground to trigger flowering, so they have to go in early enough to root and then sit through the cold. Skip that, and even a healthy bulb will not bloom. Now, an honest point about timing, because the advice genuinely splits here, and you deserve the real picture. Some gardeners plant bulbs in September. Many experienced sources, though, say wait a little longer, until the soil has actually cooled down, often into October or even November, because a bulb put into still warm September soil can start growing too early or be more prone to rot. So the honest guidance is this: buy your bulbs now in September, because the garden centers have the best selection now and sell out as the season goes on, but plant them once the soil has genuinely cooled from about mid-autumn onward. September is when you buy and plan. Mid to late autumn is often when you actually plant. The one thing you must not do is nothing. Buying the bulbs is the step people mean to get to and never do, and then the window is gone. So get them now, while the choice is good, and get them in as the soil cools. Plant them at roughly 2 to 3 times their own depth, pointy end up, in a spot with decent drainage, because the one thing that rots a bulb is sitting in waterlogged ground over winter. Now, job 2, and it gives you free plants while you are at it. Job 2. Divide your overgrown perennials now, which fixes tired plants and gives you free new ones at the same time. Perennials, the plants that come back every year, gradually grow into bigger and bigger clumps, and after a few years, many of them start to struggle in the middle. The center dies out, leaving a bare patch ringed by growth, and the flowering drops off because the clump is now competing with itself for water and nutrients and space. Dividing is the fix. You dig up the clump, split it into several smaller pieces, and replant them. The plant comes back rejuvenated, and every extra piece is a whole new plant for free, to fill another bed or to give away. Autumn is one of the best times to do it, for the temperature reason this whole video runs on. The cool, often damp autumn weather means a divided plant loses less water and suffers far less stress than one dug up in summer heat, and the still warm soil lets the divisions root in before winter. There is a deadline built into that, though, and it matters. Divide at least about 8 weeks before your ground freezes, so the pieces have real time to establish roots before the cold shuts everything down. Leave it too late, and the divisions go into winter with no root hold and may not survive. This is especially the job for your spring and early summer bloomers, and this is the key to getting more flowers rather than fewer. Plants like peonies, irises, and daylilies are best divided now, in autumn, precisely because dividing them in spring would disturb them right as they are trying to flower and would cost you next year's blooms. Divide them now. They spend the winter settling in, and they come up in spring ready to perform. To do it, dig up the whole clump. Split it into sections with a spade or 2 forks back to back, making sure each piece has both healthy roots and growing points, and replant the divisions at the same depth they were before, then water them in. Discard the tired, dead center of the old clump and keep the vigorous outer pieces. Quick one, right here, because this video is really about a whole garden reset. Not one plant, the whole thing, all at once, in one window. And the 2 questions underneath every job on this list are the same 2 questions I get asked constantly about the specific plants people love most. When do I plant this, and when do I cut it? The answer decides everything, and getting it wrong costs a whole year on any plant. So I did the thing I wish more gardening advice did. I wrote down the honest, plant-by-plant version for the plants people struggle with the most, and put it all in one place. It is called The Complete Library, and it is 3 guides together. The Hydrangea Mastery Guide, because a hydrangea is 6 different plants wearing one name, and each is pruned at a different time. The Complete Lavender Guide, because lavender is killed far more often by the wrong care than by the cold. And the Hydrogen Peroxide Playbook, 31 sourced garden uses for the one bottle already under your sink. Each one does what this video does, but for a single plant in real depth. When to plant it, when to cut it, when to leave it alone, and the honest limits nobody selling you a miracle will admit. All three together are $57, which is $24 less than buying them separately. No inflated discount, just the real math. Instant PDF files, 7-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the description at waltgreer.com. And they end the way this channel always does, with the truth included. 4 of the 6 hydrangea types cannot change color no matter what you do. Lavender is not immortal and cannot be saved once it goes woody to the base. A guide that only tells you what to do is only half a guide. Now, job 3, and it is the one that proves the whole point about September, that fall genuinely beats spring. Job 3. Plant your new perennials, shrubs, and trees now, because fall genuinely beats spring for this, and this is where that claim proves itself. There is an old saying among gardeners, fall is for planting, and it is not a slogan, it is sound horticulture. For most hardy perennials, shrubs, and trees, autumn is a better time to put them in the ground than spring, and the reason is the exact temperature gap this whole video runs on. Warm soil, cool air, so the plant pours everything into roots while asking nothing of its top growth. A shrub planted now spends the whole autumn building roots underground, then goes dormant, and wakes up next spring already established, ready to grow away strongly, while a spring-planted one is still just finding its feet. There is a real advantage beyond the roots, and it is one that saves you work. A plant put in now, in the cool damp of autumn, faces far less stress than one planted into the rising heat of spring and early summer. Autumn brings cooler days and more rain, so new plants are not fighting to survive heat and drought right after transplanting, and the natural rainfall does much of your watering for you. You are planting into forgiving conditions instead of a countdown to summer. This is also the honest reason a fall-planted shrub often outpaces the same shrub planted in spring. It has a full autumn and, in milder areas, spells of winter root growth behind it before spring even arrives. So by next summer, it has a bigger, deeper, more drought-tolerant root system than a spring plant could build in the same first year. The Head Start compounds. 2 honest limits, because fall planting is not for absolutely everything. Borderline hardy and tender plants are better left until spring, so their roots can establish through a whole warm season before facing a hard winter, rather than being planted straight into the cold. And a few slow-to-establish species also prefer spring. For the great majority of hardy perennials, shrubs, and trees, though, now is the better window. When you plant, dig the hole no deeper than the root ball but 2 or 3 times as wide. Set the plant at the same depth it was growing before, water it in well, and mulch around it, keeping the mulch back off the stems. And keep watering new plantings until the ground freezes, because roots need moisture to establish even as the air cools. Now, job 4, and it is 2 jobs really, the lawn and the soil. Job 4 is really 2 jobs, and they go together. Fix the lawn and feed the soil, because September is the best month of the year for both, and both pay off in spring. Start with the lawn, because if you have a cool season grass, this is genuinely the single most important month to work on it, more important than spring. After a long, hot summer, a cool season lawn is tired, thin, and patchy, and September is exactly when it wants to recover, because the cooling air and warm soil are perfect for grass to grow roots and for new seed to establish. So September is the month to overseed, to fill in the thin and bare patches, and to feed. A cool season lawn fed now, with the potassium it wants going into winter, builds a strong root system and comes back in spring thick and green, while the lawn nobody touched comes back thin and full of gaps that the weeds move straight into. The order that works: rake out the dead thatch, loosen or aerate compacted areas, sow fresh seed over the thin patches, feed, and keep it all watered until the seed is established, because new grass seed cannot be allowed to dry out. Mid-September is the sweet spot in most areas, early enough that the seed establishes before the cold. One honest note: this is the schedule for cool season grasses, the ones that grow most in spring and autumn. Warm season lawns work on a different calendar and do not want feeding or heavy work this late, so if that is what you have, this particular job is not for you now. Now the soil, and this is the quiet one that underpins everything you plant. After a full growing season, the soil in your beds is depleted, its structure worn down, and its nutrients used up. September is an ideal time to put that back by spreading a layer of compost or well-rotted organic matter over your beds, because the soil is still warm enough for the soil life to be active and to work that material in over autumn. So instead of starting next spring with tired, hungry soil, you start with ground that has spent the whole autumn and winter being rebuilt, ready to feed everything that grows in it. Now, job 5, the last one, and it comes with 2 things you must not do this month. Job 5. Clean up this year's disease before it overwinters, and while you are at it, know the 2 things you must not do this month. Every plant that had a fungal problem this year, the roses with black spot, anything with mildew or leaf spot, is dropping infected leaves onto the ground right now. Those fallen leaves are not rubbish. They are next year's disease, sitting in the soil through winter, waiting for spring rain to splash the spores back up onto the new growth. So, a genuine autumn cleanup is one of the highest value and most overlooked spring investments there is. Rake up and remove the fallen leaves from under any plant that was diseased, clear the debris out of the beds, and get it out of the garden. Do not compost diseased material, because a home compost pile rarely gets hot enough to kill the spores, so composting it just stores the problem and hands it back to you. Bag it or burn it. Clearing that reservoir now means far less disease to fight next year, on plants that start the season clean. Now the 2 things you must not do, because September is exactly when people do them and cause the damage. Do not fertilize your trees and shrubs now. It feels like the season to feed everything up before winter, and it is the opposite. A feed now, nitrogen especially, forces soft new growth just as the plant should be hardening off and going dormant, and that tender growth has no time to toughen before the cold, so the frost kills it and the plant goes into winter weakened. Feeding of trees and shrubs should have stopped back in summer. Leave them be now. And do not prune your trees and shrubs now either. Pruning also stimulates new growth, the same vulnerable frost-tender growth, at the same wrong moment, right before it can harden off. So put the shears away for the woody plants until they are fully dormant in late winter, which is the proper time. There is one careful exception, and it is only ever removal, not shaping. You can always take out wood that is genuinely dead, damaged, or diseased at any time, because that is not stimulating new growth. It is cleaning up. Removing a broken branch is fine. Cutting a shrub back for shape or size now is the mistake. So the last job is really about restraint. Clean up what is diseased, and resist the 2 temptations that feel like autumn care but sabotage the plant. Before we finish, send this to one person you know who is about to put the garden to bed and write off the year. Just the link. There is a whole spring sitting in front of them, and this is the 2-week window where it gets decided. Here is the whole thing in one idea. September is not the end of the gardening year. It is the start of next year's, and almost everything you do now pays off 8 months from now, invisibly, underground, while the soil is still warm and the air has gone cool. That gap between warm soil and cool air is the whole engine, roots growing hard while nothing shows on top, and it closes the moment the ground goes cold. So plant your spring bulbs, or at least buy them now and get them in as the soil cools. because a missed autumn means no early flowers next year and no way to make it up. Divide your overgrown perennials, especially the spring bloomers like peonies and iris, to rejuvenate them and get free plants, at least 8 weeks before the ground freezes. Plant your new perennials, shrubs, and trees now, because fall genuinely beats spring, and they will spend the whole autumn building roots for a flying start. Fix the lawn, if it is a cool season grass, because September is its most important month to overseed and feed. And feed the soil with compost, so next spring starts from rebuilt ground instead of tired ground. Then clean up every diseased leaf so it cannot overwinter and reinfect next year. And leave the shears and the fertilizer away from your trees and shrubs, because feeding and pruning now force tender growth that the frost kills, and the only cutting allowed is removing wood that is already dead or diseased. Do all that in this short window, and next spring your garden comes up earlier, thicker, and stronger than you have ever seen it, while the gardener who wrote off September is still waiting for theirs to wake up. That is the whole secret. The best spring garden is not made in spring. It is made right now. Subscribe and hit the bell and stick around. We do this the honest way here in the Forgotten Knowledge Library, which means telling you where the experts disagree, like the real timing on bulbs, and telling you the 2 things to stop doing as clearly as the jobs to start. It is free, and it always will be. And drop a comment telling me which of these jobs you always forget, because for a lot of us, it is the bulbs, and there is still time this year. Next time, another window most gardeners walk right past. That decides more than they realize. I will see you in the next one.